11:30 p.m., Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, silent meditation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes for the meeting of August 6, 2014, and bills for payment on August 15th, 22nd, and 29th, 2014. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.
Are there any requests for repository sales? Are there any requests for repository sales? Are there any requests for repository sales? Hearing none. Rose. Citizens to be heard. Mr. Randy Barnes. Mr. Randy Barnes present? No. Hey, Mr. Barnes is not present. Any citizens could step to the mic, give us your name and address. And each citizen has 5 minutes.
Guess that's me. My name is McDonald. My property is 19th and Reed. I was talking to you all about putting them cameras on those police cars. And I haven't heard anything from you all. If they'd have had cameras on that car that cop killed that kid up there in wherever it happened, I had been thinking about that, and that's something to think about. The kid got his hands up, and he gets shot. That could have been your kid, and you wouldn't have liked it. Wouldn't have liked it at all. Killing somebody with their hands up. You know, I thought the cops supposed to protect us. That's what we pay them salaries for, to protect us, not kill us. All across the country this seems to be going on. I don't understand it. I really don't. I wish y'all would explain it to me. I thought those are our finest, and they're supposed to be protecting us. I can understand why a lot of people's got them AK-47s and they don't want to give them up. They have to protect themselves. But getting back to those cameras on those cars, are you all looking into that? You got a couple of new cruisers coming, and I see they got those braces on the front of them up there. I don't know what that up there, but that money gone to waste as far as I'm concerned. They could put cameras on those cars. You're going to put them on there sooner or later. You're going to wish you had to put them on there anyway, because that's not asking too much. I mean, you're getting our tax money. Why don't you spend it like you're supposed to? Anything Joe wants up there, you give to him, but it's me, just me. Don't seem to be nobody else interested in it, but I'm interested in it because the police mouth is a prayer book. It's a Bible. When something go down, what the officers say, that's what went down. I don't care how wrong it is. Then they'll say, well, we'll let attorney affairs or whatever it is, look into this. Look, They're not qualified to be checking each other out, because they're not going to go the right way. They're going to stick together. I don't care how big the liar is. We need those cameras on those cars. I want y'all to think about it, because later on down the road, you're going to wish you had to put them on there. People are getting tired of being mistreated. People are getting tired of that. Here you're grown up, and somebody in a blue suit jump out and beat the hell out of you. That don't make sense. Don't hit me. You check my record, and I know some of you done looked into it. My record is pretty clean down there. But they want to make you a felon, so you don't have no rights when you get to be a felon. When you come out of jail, and they're going to change that. They're going to have to change it. People want to be treated like you want to be treated. You want to be treated like you somebody. There's somebody that should be treated bad, but then it's not up to the police to do it. They're supposed to arrest them, and the people's over there supposed to, but there's no justice over there for us. There's no justice over there for us. And you'll find out that eventually too, that there's no justice over there for us. If ain't no justice for us, there ain't gonna be no justice for you. Take my word for that. You think this old man is blowing hot air? I'm not. Y'all don't get out there and hear what's going on. People are getting tired of being treated like they're inhuman. And I'm tired for them. Them that ain't tired for themselves, I'm tired for them. I demand to be treated. That, you know, when your President Lieberman said, justice for all, there is no justice for all. There is no justice for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mack.
How's everybody doing?
Fine, sir.
I'm here on behalf of my company, Wake Up Now.
Do we have your name and address?
Oh, absolutely. My name is Alvin Tucker, and my address is 1135 West H Street. Like I said, I'm here on behalf of my company, Wake Up Now, and my business partners, as you can see behind me, Chris McCullen and Serge Augustin, and also Cassandra over there. So thank you all for the support. And definitely, I was asked to do a column for Erie Times News by Liz Allen about how to improve the community. And we settled on 3 main ways to do that. First of all, as love as a universal problem solver. You know, if there was a lot more love, there'd be a lot less violence and things of that nature, and a lot more reaching out to each other. Number 2 was financial literacy. My partners and I actually have a company where we teach people to take control of their lives. We teach them financial literacy, how to take care of their finances, how to get out of debt, and how to take care of their families. And we feel like through that they would be able to inevitably take control of their city. So that's the second reason. And the third reason being the emergence of the hip-hop movement in Erie. I don't know if everybody's, actually, I do know that everybody's aware because of Cassandra has been coming for the last couple of weeks. And we've been throwing a lot of events around Erie. Of course, we want something for the inner city kids to identify with. You know, we feel like, that will help them and whatever things that they're going through. If they feel like somebody on a pedestal, if you will, is going through that same thing, because at the end of the day, we are humans. And we want there to be great events, smooth events, where we raise, last event that we threw on the 25th of July, we actually raised a couple $100 for the Anna Shelter, which is where I got my cap from. And we definitely want the events to be something that's a blessing to everybody's lives. The next event that we have coming up is an event on August 23rd, this Saturday, from 1 to 7 p.m. It's called Just Be. It's the first annual event, health, community, family picnic, food, games, entertainment for kids. Everything is free. That same day, I have the column coming out about, it's called Mistake on the Lake, and I definitely encourage everybody to read it. And we would love for everybody to pull together different groups and individuals alike power and powerless, even though they might feel that way, people at the bottom, people at the top, basically, to pull together and in one unity effort, make these things happen. We understand that it might take a lot of time, but we have the patience to do it, and we definitely have the will as well. So thank you all for having me, and have a blessed week.
Thank you very much.
All right. As you know, I'm Cassandra, and today I just kind of came by to give you guys a rundown on what has happened so far with the Underground Hip Hop Review. As Alvin said, we've had numerous events. I'm pretty sure you guys were aware of C. Brown. He's performed in the Erie Days, and also Honeybee along with C. Brown. They performed in 8 Great Tuesdays for the All-Stars. They did a really good turnout. We did the Sullivans, both shows. Sunday, us profit-wise, we made $150. The bar, behind the bar, on a Sunday made $1,000, $1,000. That's the only bar in Erie that day that made that much money. That Wednesday, they made $2,000. We made $200 up there. What else? We have upcoming events. We have the Summer Jam at Bobby's Place, August 29th, and we have the Ross Box Release Party, which is August 31st. I will be performing along with other artists. It'll be at Docksiders at 7 p.m. $5 to get your tickets in advance, $7 at the door. They also have the VIP upstairs, and then they have T-shirts, CDs, all for sale. PACA, I perform on August 22nd. Basically, PACA, they've been using it as a hip-hop community, getting everybody involved. We're still looking for the venues for 2015 for the music festival, and we want to continue to outreaching Erie. We want to be able to get on the road and make sure everybody is on key, on point, non-violence, all these shows, not one incident has happened. Besides like Erie Days and 8 Great Tuesdays, that has nothing to do with our performances as much as like within the hip hop. But other than that, I just wanted to give you guys a rundown on what has happened so far. And I'm planning on, after the Ross Box release party, to get in contact with you guys once more. All right? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Casey Wells. I'm Executive Director of the Erie County Convention Center Authority. And as you know, we have a very important issue on tonight's agenda. And I just want to make it clear for the record that any delay in the vote will cause us potentially great harm and will jeopardize the project. We have a very tight construction schedule. I know that some stairs were brought up recently. I became aware of them yesterday. We certainly don't have any budget funds allocated for any additional add-ons to this project. So if stairs are going to be a component, we'll either need to look for other funding sources and/or reduce the scope and size of the hotel in our project, which may make it untenable for its success. We have followed all of the rules and regulations and the timelines established by this and other bodies, complied with all of the information requests. I think it's safe to say that we've responded to every request within a matter of days of council and other legislative bodies through this process. Councilman Mirsky, as our council liaison, has attended nearly every meeting of the Erie County Convention Center Authority, so he has been made aware of all of the steps of this process. I think we've been transparent, forthright, and again, addressed this body in a timely manner. And to delay it now because of the construction bidding process, opportunities for them to review bids, submit them, move them to contract, for us to get in the ground prior to the bad weather setting in, which is in mid-October, is essential that this gets passed this evening. Should that not happen, with the weather last winter, for instance, if it comes early, it could delay us an entire year, not opening in April of 2016, perhaps pushing us 6 or 8 months into 2016, opening a hotel when it's disadvantaged to open in the wintertime, not having sufficient time to train staff. Again, just to summarize, we followed the rules. We believe we've provided council with all of the information, and to have an element now added for a circumstance that occurred appropriately, properly a year ago is unfortunate, but I just want to remind council that we did not cause this most recent concern and have been forthright and quick to respond throughout the process. Thank you for your consideration on that matter.
Mr. Wells, I can't ask any questions at this point, but would you be able to, once we get to that item, would you be around if we have some questions?
Certainly, and with me also is an architect on the project, as well as our construction manager at E.E. Austin, who did the schedule. It's a very aggressive construction schedule, as well as provided construction management services, as well as estimating services. There's a number of serious challenges caused by any delay in council, and we all will remain to answer any questions council may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Erie City Council. My name is Jason Brundle of 4131 McClellan Avenue, and I have some voters that I've talked to over the past 6 months about two things that are happening, that are going to happen today. The first is the GAF site. I've talked to people in Cleveland, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh, and across this country about what Erie needs to do about the GAF site. With what's going to happen tonight, I strongly suggest you rethink everything. We need to redevelop Erie's Bayfront correctly. How does putting a parking garage in the middle of a beautiful site will attract what we need to bring downtown? First and foremost, the thing that I really want to ask the question is, if you build that parking garage, will there be what we've been talking about, central market, apartments, shopping, office? Will that be addressed tonight? Will the Harbor Place project be affected by this? Because I have a lot of people that are supporting the Harbor Place project along the Bayfront. I have a lot of people that I've talked to outside the city, and they're saying that Erie needs to wake up. There are other cities like Allentown, Pennsylvania, that are groundbreaking their grounds for the waterfront. It's going to be an 8-story building that's going to bring commerce, jobs, and living downtown Allentown. And if we want to take back our third rank in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we need to step on this, and we need to make sure that the transparency between City Council and the voters are happening every day. Because a lot of voters are coming to me and asking me, Jason, you know City Council, are you addressing our concerns? And I always say yes, and you guys are doing an awesome job, and thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other citizens to be heard?
Good evening. My name is Portia Spearman. My residence is at 5th and Cascade. I come today because on July 21st, between 7 and 7:30, two 12-year-old boys were assaulted, my son being one of them. One young man was assaulted on 3rd and Chestnut by the Martin Luther King Center property. My son was a witness to that first assault. The little boy that got assaulted, my son watched him get brutally beat by two young men, 12 and 13 age range. They kicked him several times in the face. As my son left to head home, he was at 4th and Cherry, and he was approached by two young men, the same age range, and one pushed him, and he took his helmet off and told the young man not to push me. Then the second young man came over and pushed him And when he got pushed the last time, he fell to the concrete, full force, and they kicked him in the face. They punched him in the face, and they left my son on the ground. I was watching the time because I don't let my son run the streets. I'm pretty on top of things with him. I got up to go look for him, and he was coming around the corner. He sustained head injuries, neck injuries, back injuries, and currently he's here with me today. And right now he's able to walk and he's not in any pain, but that wasn't the case several hours ago. I am working with a detective with the Police Bureau regarding pressing charges against the individuals that did this. I come today because I'm looking for help from the city of Erie. I really think that it's time right now for us all to stop making excuses to the best of our ability and to collaborate and come together, regardless of religious beliefs or nationality. My son could have been killed along with the other 12-year-old boy. I have to take my son to a neurologist, traveled 4 hours total. A neurologist, I have to take him to an ear doctor. We've been to the emergency room 3 times because of the injuries that he sustained. I understand that the Police Bureau, they're tied up with the murder that recently happened, but at Erie Days, I've seen several police officers on foot monitor. I know that they were, monitoring, looking for safety and trying to keep things under control, but it's almost been a month and these young men have not been charged. I had stopped at Emerson Gridley Park because one of the young men that was involved in the first assault, he went to the park and he was bullying another child, and I went over to intervene. The same young man propositioned a young lady and offered her money to fill on her body. These young men are still running the streets. They were bragging about what they were doing. I'm looking for help. What happened to my son, it's sad what happened to him. Even the following Friday, I broke up a fight between a 7 and 8-year-old. There was one child, he gripped another child's head and was getting ready to run him into the building and smash his head against the building. The violence is starting to increase more, and there's not enough being done, I feel, in the city of Erie. I understand that there's certain programs within, but we need more help from the city of Erie. Any resources, I'm willing to work with the Neighborhood Watch. I've contacted Johnny Johnson. He got in contact with Chief Bowers. I've been to the police station. I spoke to the deputy chief. I've been to the sheriff's office. I am doing everything that I can possibly do as a mother, as a citizen. I don't want this to happen to anyone else's child. And this is not just a black thing or or a Hispanic thing. It affects all of us. If we don't step up and do something, the city of Erie, the officials, those that are in leadership position, we're going to start having more killings. From my understanding so far, there's been 7 killings this year. If we don't step up and to make a change, it's going to start getting worse. The other young man, I don't know how he's doing. I haven't had opportunity to speak to his mother. I did reach out to them. I haven't got a response back. But this is psychological damage that's done also. My son is also in counseling that I have to take him to several times a month because he was attacked, not just this time, but earlier in that month he was assaulted on his way to church. And it's sad that these things are occurring. And I know some of it is from poor parenting, but I can't hold that as an excuse because now it's time to come up with a solution to address the issues that are occurring so that way we can take our city back. This is the city of Erie, which we live in. There are individuals that I have spoken to in the neighborhood in the 4th and Cascade area. I was just asking them in the 4th and Cherry area. Thank you for your time. Have a
Now,
good evening.
excuse me,
Yes, sir.
I'm the president. I can make some rule changes. Continue.
Thank you. I spoke to individuals where the incident occurred, and I asked them just to keep a lookout, and I explained to them what had happened to my son. And I spoke to some of the elderly, and they're living in fear because of the violence that's occurring. About 2 weeks ago, as I was speaking to a family, probably 5 or 10 minutes prior to that, a lady got assaulted in the 4th and Cherry area. I have spoken to the judge in that area with the incident that had occurred with my son, but I've spoken to several people that have been living in Erie for 15 and 18 years, and the elderly are living in fear on West 2nd Street. I met a lady from one of the churches in that area on 3rd and Cherry, and she showed me her car that had been keyed, and she said not just herself, but her neighbors' cars, people that have been living in this neighborhood for years, that are elderly people, all their cars have been keyed. They reported it to the police, but they don't have a witness, so it's not much that can be done. I don't know what else to do. This is why I'm here.
I just have one question. Have you met with the director of Martin Luther King Center?
Not face-to-face. I did contact him on the telephone to explain to him what happened. I haven't had a response back from him. He said that he would get back in contact with me, but as of yet, I haven't spoken to him.
Who's our police liaison? Cass? Yes. Would you follow up on that, please, along with the administration? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Our city. Are there any other citizens to be heard?
When your name ends in Z or starts with Z, you're used to waiting to the end of the line. Good evening, Mr. Witherspoon. Long time no see. Bob Zawatsky, 4122 Vista Drive, Erie. Come to speak about the steps a little bit. As many of you know, I've had issues with other Bayfront autonomous authorities in the past. The only one I've not had issues with is the Water Authority. Problem is, sometimes they say one thing and do something else. The old adage says, fool me once, it's my problem, fool me once, it's your problem. Having served 18 years on the Erie West Pennsylvania Port Authority under the former Mayor Lou Tullio, I kind of know how authorities operate. I got a real lesson in life under Mr. Tullio, believe me. At the time, we had a solicitor, Admiral Stephen Jones, and he'd remind us on occasion that, fellas, the money you're playing with is not yours. It belongs to the taxpayer. Don't ever forget that. During my time on the Port Authority and during my construction time, I have had many dealings with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regarding permitting procedures. And in the permit to put up the seawall for the, as I call it, the Woodbury property, or before that, the Watson property, it was speculated or requested that steps be put in. Now, if my memory serves me right, the same engineering firm designed the Ed Mead fishing pier at Cascade Docks, as I still call Liberty Pier, and it had steps in it. And when the initial application to the Corps, which was over a year ago, it mentioned steps. Now, when I did read the initial Corps application, I thought, great, steps are great. Reason being means more water access. Public access is nice, but now you got to be able to touch it, the water. Not just walk by it and spit in it, throw your debris in it, or watch stuff float by. It's great for, as you know, our 6 months of ice time in this town, so you can have access to the ice, the people. And it's also better for rescue and recovery efforts all year round. But no steps were built into it as the Corps permitted them to be put in. One of my questions is, has the Chief Tony Pohl or Chief Bowers had any comment about this as regarding their input into steps for rescue and recovery efforts like we have at the public dock and other public places? And in my kind of reasoning, and maybe looking down the road too far, maybe looking in through the camouflage and seeing what else is going on, one of the reasons that no steps were provided, in my opinion, this is my opinion, is if you don't have the steps, or if you had the steps, or whatever, but no steps excludes a certain portion of our taxpayers' access to winter usage of the ice. And why I ask? Well, maybe this group doesn't fit into the high-end housing that may someday occur on this site. In my opinion, how do you spell discrimination? Okay. Now, rebar was welded into the sheet steel pile in the form of a ladder. At my age, I need a crane to pick me up out of that water. These little homemade ladders are not OSHA approved, I don't think. And as I go in and out of the channel and various other places along the waterfront, not only do they have the rebar, they also have the handles to get yourself out of the water. The Water Authority's property at Chestnut Street has those handles, in case you need them. But if there were steps there, and say an animal or a person needed to get out, if they couldn't make it to the steps, they could get out. These ladders are not quite right for people who are just a little bit older. Now, you got the signs down here and fences. Now, in my years of construction, where I worked on several detention facilities in the area, I have not seen as much fencing as I see around there right now. The only thing that's not part of the fencing is the razor wire. But it's not there, thank you, or thankfully. The signs on the fence say, private property, keep out. I'm sorry, that is taxpayers' property. Now, Mr. Wells and the people on the authority, yes, they pay taxes, but it is not financed privately, and that irritates me in my age in life after being a taxpayer for most of my life. They could have a nice sign up there or whatever, you know, government fund or taxpayer funded.
Thank you, Bob.
So,
5 minutes is up, my friend.
okay, make them put the steps in. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Council members and President Ed Kissel, 2814 Sigsbee Street. A lot of discussion went on this evening in the side room and a few comments out here. But maybe as a compromise or looking at this so everybody comes out somewhat on the positive side, as a suggestion, approve the hotel in the parking garage as it was presented, but conditional use that 1 year after completion of the hotel, that 2 staircases be required to be put in under the city's conditional zoning. That would give time to the Convention Center Authority to see, after the construction of the hotel and the parking garage, if there's some leftover money. Now, I will tell you, maybe Mr. Casey and the architect will hopefully tell you that during the different meetings that took place, from the zoning hearing board to the planning review to the planning commission meeting, I asked a few questions about the height variances. And it came up from the head architectural firm that I believe whatever firm is going to be putting the hotel in there, that the ceiling height was a little bit on the high side, and it's possibility that they're going to make the hotel a little bit shorter in height. That alone would save hundreds of thousands of dollars that the authority could, if this came to fruition, use for the public amenities. This would not put a stranglehold on the authority. It would give the citizens the opportunity to share in that waterfront with all the money that's being spent. The authority got $40,000 here about 6 months ago from the Growing Greener Fund to help with the construction and benches of that walkway. And it is public, it is public money, and we should all share in that. So I ask maybe consideration after hearing what went on. I can also tell you from the days of the GAF site when the property and the Sassafras Street project was taking place, the attorneys, both here in the city and from the GAF site, could never get together on how to referee that property till in the end they did get together, and finally after 6 months to a year that project moved forward with the zoning variances and so forth that had to take place. I'll also jump to the Sheraton Hotel and Convention Center and parking garage. That didn't go smoothly from the beginning either. There were some delays in that. So this scenario of waiting another 2 weeks or so is going to strangle the project. It's been used before, and I think a compromise is what I stated, that go ahead and approve it, but condition it as much as you can on putting them in later. That'll give time for everybody to look for, and there may be monies from other sources, so that this can move forward. That's a suggestion, plus 2 other things. I ask for conditional zoning on the existing 10 parking places and on the 10 that was proposed to council at the last meeting, that those conditions be put in to protect the citizens so they have some parking in that area. So I thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Good evening. Jay Brenneman, 2416 East 40th Street. I'm here today, I should note, not as a county council member, but as a citizen of the city that has a lot of interest in professionally and personally what happens on our bayfront. Living on East 40th, it's easily a half marathon's distance for me to go to the waterfront and back, to the bayfront and back. I've done it, I've ran it, I've ridden my bicycle down and back and forth. I firmly believe in walkable communities. I firmly believe in more cycling, less driving. But as a father of a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old, I'm not going to strap them to my back, and I'm not going to strap them onto my bicycle for a half marathon's distance down to the bayfront. Now, I'm not the only one that can attest to the coldness of Erie's winters, particularly right there on the bay. I don't know if you've ever been to an event at the convention center and had to walk from the parking lot, particularly when it's tough to get parking. I normally don't get valet parking. I usually try to save that money. Every dollar counts. But making that walk, it's a very cold trek. And you really look forward to being inside that warm room. And so when I see something like this, and I see a parking garage, automatically like, okay, more parking. Why more parking? But then you hear about what organizations such as the Environmental Protection Agency says about parking. Their recommendations that you build up, not out. That you build and you take that investment towards parking garages, not parking lots. You look at the construction of a parking garage on environmentally capped property and say, okay, that means that parking lot, that expansive piece of pavement next to it, has potential for development. That will mean revenue into the city. I've had a chance to go to Baltimore a couple times, and I got to tell you, I'm not impressed. And I actually, the one time I was there, I saw a young man ride his skateboard up to the water's edge, get off and jump in, and shortly thereafter, a police person came by and cited the young man for jumping in the water. I know not all, as somebody who's traveled quite a bit, and I enjoy the outdoors very much so. Used to be, growing up in Montana, a very avid fisherman. I know that not every part of the waterfront is ideal, that you want to encourage public access. And to me, I see that not necessarily as crucial to the success of this. Speaking on Allentown, I've seen their plans. They have a call for 3 parking garages. 3 parking garages. The rest of the waterfront, all office space. We have a golden opportunity to do something great on this bayfront. The hotel, when my wife and I got married, because I was in the Army, I wasn't able to take leave to go to our honeymoon right away, so what we did is we spent a few days in the Sheraton. I really enjoyed it there. It was great. Jamie enjoyed it as well, and we had like a mini vacation there, and we do plan on having a sort of a staycation there once again. Although I'm really looking forward to seeing this hotel get built, because I know the views will be much better. We have a loading dock there that has the best views in the city, and I would rather have that producing revenue and providing towards the enjoyment for not just Erie citizens, but also for those who are visiting our city and have something to remember it by. They can say, you know what, I remember when I was in Erie. I was at the CCAP, the County Commissioner Association of Pennsylvania, annual meeting recently down in Lancaster, and they were all talking to me, they were all saying about how they enjoyed their visit here, and they're coming back in a couple more years. They need that space. There's only so many places in Pennsylvania they can go. When they came back, I said, look for this hotel. You're going to have the best views in town when you come here. When we see a project like this, and I know I see ahead of you, the issue of waterfront conditional use for construction of a new hotel, parking garage, and a covered walkway. And I just ask that you please don't hold up the process, even if it's a couple weeks. Make this happen. All too often, I think people are too comfortable with dragging their heels on things, just to be a little bit more sure. But every one of you has done your steadfast duty, has been very careful about the decisions that you make, and I have to applaud you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other citizens to be heard? Are there any other citizens to be heard? Are there any other citizens to be heard? Hearing none, we move on with the agenda.
Okay, moving on to ordinances for final passage. Council file number 15882, official ordinance number 28/2014, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $88,349.57 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue, $87,431.37 received earnings from the Enterprise Zone Revolving Loan Fund, and $918.20 program income. These funds are to be allocated into the Enterprise Zone program accounts. By Mr. Jones and seconded by Mrs. Haran-Kunso, that council file number 15882, having been read, is hereby adopted first reading. Oops. I beg your pardon. Okay. Sponsored by Mr. Jones and seconded by Mrs. Haran-Kunso, that council file ordinance number 15882, and now known as official file ordinance number 28/2014, be finally passed by the City Council. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Haran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. City Council passes file ordinance number 28/2014 finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinance for first reading. Council file number 15883, introduced by Mr. Winarski, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $250,000 from unappropriated revenue received from a Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Act 101, Section 92, Recycling Development and Implementation Grant, and providing for the expenditure thereof. By Mr. Winarski, second by Mr. Witherspoon, that council file ordinance number 1583, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. City Council ready to adopt council file ordinance number 15883 by yea 7, nay 0. That takes us to old business. Resolution sponsored by Mr. Brennan and seconded by Mr. Mursky. That pursuant to the provisions of zoning ordinance number 80, 2005, and a public hearing held Wednesday, August 6, 2014 at 9:30 a.m., the request for waterfront conditional use by Kidder Walker Architecture and Design in conjunction with the Erie County Convention Center Authority for construction of a new hotel to be attached to the existing Erie County Convention Center at 1 Sassafras Pier, and a parking garage to be adjacent to the hotel with a covered walkway, is hereby approved by City Council. Mr. Brennan?
Rose?
Yes.
Before we go any further, I know we have a lot of discussions. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to ask Mr. Wells or his architect or his team to come up. We're going to answer questions. We aren't debating. We get an answer. We put it up here. But we are not going back and forth, back and forth. We'll be here all night. Okay? And there'll be no cross-examinations. We just ask some questions. Do we have any questions of this organization, the Convention Center?
Yes, I have a question,
Go ahead.
Mr. President. Due to all this discussion, Mr. Wells, for the project, was there ever any discussion during I wasn't at the zoning hearing or the planning commission hearings, was there any discussion of, by providing this height increase in the project, to do something else for the public benefit on the hotel site for the public use?
Yes, we consider our 1,000-foot of improved waterfront parkway as a benefit, since we significantly exceeded the requirements of the ordinance at substantial cost. And in total, putting in the context of our development, because we look at it holistically, is that it's nearly 3/4 of a mile of top end, I will describe as spectacular, waterfront access that'll be available for residents of this community as well as vacationers and visitors from other communities. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We will intend on opening that in early September, and I'll let that experience speak for itself. But we consider that as part of a public improvement, and I also need to put it in the context that I think that much of what we do as a Convention Center Authority is for the public good.
Any other questions, Dave? You had the floor.
Any questions, Dave? Any more?
I'm good.
Mr. President?
Jim?
Mr. Wells, at any time in this study process or the planning, were there any seawall steps part of this planning? These safety steps that a few gentlemen have talked about in the seawall?
The safety step issue is was an issue that was relative to the GAF property development that was a year ago. It was discussed, but never part of the submitted plans and those advertised. Relative to this current question in front of this body, steps were not a component. We have provided in the convention center project beach access, if we will. We jokingly call it Kissel Beach, that allows those who want to access the water particularly during the winter season, to have a beach-like grade to drag their ice fishing huts and/or sleds. That was a component that we provided with the Bayfront Convention Center project. It continues to operate successfully today, and it's in immediate proximity of these steps that I became aware of yesterday. I just want to add, if I may, that we shared this with the entire review teams as required by the city, as well as had a private meeting with Councilman Brennan, who expressed some concerns, and we spent an hour or better with him, along with our architects, sharing this entire plan at that time, and steps were never contemplated during that presentation, before, during, or after. And that component, relative to this project, we became aware of it yesterday.
Thank you. Any comments from the left side of the aisle?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
just if we could just discuss, it seems to be a bit of two different questions being asked, or two different topics, two different types of steps. There's a couple of different things going on. What Councilman Brennan seems to have proposed is much more recreational in nature and aesthetically pleasing, maybe at least by some of the things that I've seen in the last couple of days. What we see in this letter, I believe from the Corps, is more of a safety type of a step being offered. It talks about recreational fishing, the walkway, bike path, all this stuff, but then it talks about additional safety things, and that's where steps are mentioned in that. And I know you just spoke to that a moment ago. It seems like the bigger issue, whatever kind of steps they are, is about access. And public access for people who maybe aren't interested in riding their bike or walking or fishing. And those things kind of just keep coming up. And I understand we probably can't meet every recreational need in that space. You have to have business and run a business and those components as well. But can you take a moment, whoever would be most appropriate to do that, to speak to the level of public access that has been? I know you spoke to that at the public hearing, mentioned it to us in back, but can you just kind of speak to that again, and what are the amenities of public access that are going to be available? What the regulations are, if you're beyond them, what that is.
I can answer that. My name is Jeff Kidder. I'm partner with Kidder Walker Architecture, 201 French Street, Erie. Before I want to answer that, I want to clarify this water's edge, in that we are talking about two parcels of land here. One is the convention center parcel, which has the convention center and the proposed hotel on it. And when the convention center was built, the public walkway was installed along the east and north and northwest part of the convention center parcel with paved walkway, landscaping. There was existing seawall on the convention center pier. And as you come around the convention center to the northwest edge, the walkway continues, and then when it reached the GAF site, it then went inland and connected to Sassafras. That was the edge of the public access walkway improvements that were done when the convention center was done. Now, at that western edge of the convention center, there's no seawall there currently. It goes down to the water. There's rocks and riprap, and you can go down to the water at that point in that little, like just north of where the service yard is now. So that in the winter, there's no wall to go down. You can walk right down to the water at that point. Now, the public access along the water's edge, improvements are required when a property is improved, and it's a 12-foot dimension from the edge of the water in. And so these steps that are being talked about, there's two different steps that I think are coming up. The ones that are being brought up that were supposedly not installed but were never part of the plan were part of the water's edge improvements that the convention center did on the GAF property. So we have existing waterfront improvements that already exist and have existed since the convention center opened, and that is directly north of the proposed hotel, because the hotel is on the convention center property. The water's edge improvement that Casey said is going to open up here in a few weeks is all on the GAF property, and basically continues what has already existed on the convention center property. So the steps, the water access steps that have been being brought up that were never on the plan, on the approved plan, were supposedly part of the GAF seawall project, which is built and approved. The steps that Mr. Brennan is talking about that I just saw today are proposed on the convention center property and are of a different nature than other steps in an area that already has access down to the water that doesn't have a seawall. So we have a hotel that's being voted on tonight that's on the convention center authority with an idea of improved water access that Mr. Brennan is proposing. We have a parking garage that's on GAF property that has a recently completed seawall water's edge walkway, pedestrian way, bikeway, benches, lighting. And I just wanted to be clear that we're talking about two buildings, but they are on two different parcels. So, in talking about steps is for somebody that doesn't know all the details, it's a little confusing, but.
Can we kind of wrap that one up?
Yeah, but so my answer to Mr. Curtis is, it's required to have a public access along the water's edge so that somebody can traverse that property completely on the water's edge, and the plan is to have the whole waterfront connected all the way to the west, to the east, and that's been provided and built, and it's there and ready to open.
Okay, thank you. We would like you to shorten up those answers. I thought you was an attorney for a while. Thank you, though. Very good information, only teasing. Anyone else have any questions?
I think in follow-up to that, Jeff, is I think what Dave is thinking is that since this is a public project, that we ought to have more public amenities than just the requirements of the ordinance, which is the 12-foot sidewalk, continuous walkway. And what I think his idea of the steps into the water was to have some place, a gathering place, a sense of place, a sense of destination for people who live here in Erie and people who are visiting to have somewhere to go if they weren't hotel guests or conventioneers. So that's sort of what has gotten, I think, Dave's creativity going for an idea of something to throw into the project as a way to give back something to the public since this is a publicly funded project. I know that in all this architecture that you've provided, there are not steps in there. I mean, we see that's not in the drawing. But we talked, you were here, we were all here a couple years ago, or maybe it was a year ago, I don't even know, about the GAF site and how the GAF, we were all concerned about what might be the plan, the future of the GAF site. The last buildable bayfront property, we want to make sure we do this right, we want to make sure we create a sense of place, we want to make sure that we create a destination. So we're starting here, right? I mean, whether or not there's a plan, official or unofficial, this is a starting point. You're putting a parking garage on the GAF site, putting more build out on the existing Sassafras Street Pier. We're starting to work our way. So how do we start the conversation of putting more in for the public on this site If it's not a stairwell, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not just a walkway for fishing, maybe it's park space or something, or a place where we can go and sit and watch the fireworks, or we can go and sit and watch the sunset. If we're not necessarily wanting, to patronize a hotel or something like that. So, I mean, I'm hearing that we're too late to offer these suggestions. And for us, for me particularly on council now 11 years, it has become a very common theme on any kind of decision that council has to make, particularly on waterfront, particularly from authorities, that we're always too late to offer our input for the good of the citizenry. And that's not your fault. That is how the ordinance is dictated, but it becomes a little bit of a mockery that we have really no purpose except to rubber stamp decisions that have already been made. And our input, not that you necessarily have to think everything we say is great, but our input is really not even valued or considered. It's more just like, well, that was an idea, but we can't do that, or we're not going to do that, or we never promised to do that, and it's too late now, council. So thank you very much. So that becomes a real source of irony and frustration for council members, and knowing the waterfront conditional use ordinance allows, for a lot of nice things. We're trying to make nice things for our waterfront. And, knowing that we're limited with that, we just expect a little more. We're just asking for a little more, or asking for consideration of a little bit more. You can't.
We are in the process of the master plan for the site, and all these ideas are going to be considered and incorporated to the best we can in the master plan. The other thing is the drawings that you see tonight, that you have, and the drawings we presented to you at the last council meeting are basically the same drawings and design, scope of work, intent, detail that we've been showing for months now. So this isn't, I understand what you're saying, but you're not seeing this for the first time, and we presented it.
This is our first time to have any vote or input on the process. And Casey made a statement a half an hour ago that it's too late for us to make any suggestions, additional conditions, ask you to agree to a condition, ask you to consider an idea. He's already told us it's too late. So
for the schedule that's proposed to have the hotel open for business.
well, so you set your schedule on a time frame that puts us in a corner, right? Let's be realistic here. You set the time frame so the council has no choice but to vote tonight.
That's not true.
Well,
It's not true.
if we had 2 more weeks to talk with you about suggestions, or talk with you about ideas, or maybe draw up some thoughts on paper or whatever that we're talking about, you wouldn't consider giving that time?
If that's what you vote for, we will comply, but we've stated our thought process and our reasoning to the state, and, we're here for your vote. We will comply with whatever you choose to vote with, but we've just wanted you to understand what we've been working on.
Okay, I'll let someone else take a turn. Go ahead.
Councilman Kwiatkowski.
I have a couple of questions. The one is, I understand these are always conceptual drawings, but when you look at this, featured predominantly is the picture of the steps,
This is Dave's.
the stairs.
That's Dave's drawing.
Oh, that's Dave's, I apologize, okay. But the reason why we get into debates, and I agree with Councilwoman Kunzel, nowhere along the process has council been kept in a loop except for our liaison. Okay? When you talk about this master plan, I do hope you're going to come to council and don't back us into corners, because yes, you do back us into corners.
We tried to get involved with that.
Constantly. I've been in government a lot longer than a lot of my colleagues. I've been on the school board and everything, and I've always been backed in a corner, and I don't appreciate it. You don't set your schedule according to what you think it's going to be. You should have come here and had your ducks all in a row and made sure everybody was in agreement. At the one hearing I was at, and I apologize for not being at the public hearing, but I did review the tapes and I made sure I took a tour of the site. At the previous hearing, Mr. Kinzel wasn't allowed to speak. Now, that was council's rule, and I disagreed with it, but unfortunately, we probably could have had this all solved back then. As I tour the walkway, I would agree that you got Kinzel Beach, and then you got something way down at the other end of the walkway. But it concerns me even along the still wall there that I didn't see any ladders, or are there any ladders planned? I mean, the bayfront communities and the riverfront communities I tour, there's always safety procedures in there. They weren't evident to me. If I was a newcomer coming there, I couldn't find them. Okay?
The ladders have not been installed yet.
Well, that would have been a nice point to, excuse me, Casey. That would have been a nice point. This is the lack of
There are
communication.
ladders there.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm an out-of-towner, okay?
So they can't see them.
Yeah, I'm an out-of-towner. How do I find them? I was with Mr. Mursky. I couldn't find them. I had to bend over to look for them.
You need the ladders to get up, not go in as much.
Yeah, but if you're on top and you have to go down there to get somebody, how do you
We
do
are
it?
here
You look
to,
over, but
gentlemen,
I'm
ladies,
an out-of-towner. I'm
Cass.
not somebody who lives here.
Cass,
I apologize.
we're here to ask questions so we
Okay.
can make intelligent
So that's
decisions.
my question to you is, that kind of communication has been lacking.
The ladders will be identified. It's not open yet to the public because it's not completely done, but there will be identification of the ladders from above, is what I'm told.
But I do hope in the future that you will be a little bit more open with this council. I was curious how you handled county council. You had to, you know,
I don't know, I didn't have anything to
no,
do
I know,
with
but I was
council.
watching that one, so, you know, we're just asking the same courtesy.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Mursky.
were you approved by the DEP for this project? Did the DEP approve your plans?
For the
For the-
GAF seawall
The seawall?
project without
Yeah.
the stairs, yes.
When was that? 2012,
No, it was in 13.
2013? Army Corps of
I have to look at the
Engineers.
dates, but it was some
Yeah,
time ago.
The Army Corps of Engineers, they approved the project as well?
As presented.
The zoning hearing board, they approved the project as well?
Project, yes.
The Waterfront Design Review Board approved the project as well?
Oh, yeah, unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, comments?
Councilman Brennan.
I wanted to talk a little bit about why I kind of brought it up and kind of when. I mean, the kind of the reasoning came up through input from the public, through input from people calling me and saying, did you consider this, did you consider this? And not all that public input came in at one point. So, you know, I did meet with the group, and, you know, thank you for meeting with me earlier to explain things and go through things. But the idea didn't pop into my head at the time and say, you know, I had this idea to do this or to maybe offer this as an amendment. So it was something that, you know, I admit we met before we talked about it, didn't come up with the idea. But I had proposed this, these stairs, which we keep talking about, for really two reasons. And I'm calling it a community benefit, and I'll kind of explain that. But the two reasons is that there was a variance for the height. You know, there's a 50-foot height requirement for the waterfront zoning, and this building's larger than that height. You know, the zoning board approved that. But, you know, in my mind, in other parties I've seen throughout the United States, there's always a trade-off. Okay, the public is giving up that height requirement. They're letting you build the building higher. So what do you do in exchange for that? You provide some type of public amenity or public offering of some sort to let the public know that you care about them and you're providing for them. And I'm just talking about the convention center site now. I'm not talking about the GAF. The GAF site, there's been a lot of not done to that, of course. And the other item here is the emergency stairs that on the GAF site were whether they were talked about, discussed, whether it showed up on a print, whether it didn't show up on a print, you know, they were discussed at some point, and the public had asked for that. Someone had asked for that, and at some point in time, it showed up, and again, we'll argue about what piece of paper it showed up, what piece of paper it didn't show up on. So that was something that was discussed many times, and I got calls about that. People are saying, are you considering this? What can we do? It's a public safety issue. So that's another issue. So there's really two issues why I come up with this idea. But again, the idea is to try to provide some type of, again, safety element, but also some type of community gathering space. there's plenty of gathering spaces, hopefully, that are going to be in this future GAF plan. But on the hotel site, there's a couple decks, there's outdoor decks, there's pool decks, but that's not going to be for the person off the street. That's not going to be I can't go down there and just hang out on the deck and, bring my family and just sit there and have a picnic on their patio. So the idea is to have some type of space. Maybe it's not steps, maybe it's some type of public area instead of just a asphalt pathway to provide for the public to be in and enjoy, to watch the sunset, as was mentioned earlier by a couple people. But definitely, council does not want to hold up any project. And, of course, the timing's always an issue, and we're kind of backed up into a corner that of course happens, and, there's pressure being added to this decision, which, of course, I'm not sure what's going to happen here tonight. But in regards to the budget, we have a budget by the that was done by the architect or design build team, whatever. I'm not sure who did the budget. But we didn't receive the bids yet, so we don't know what exactly the price is yet. So maybe there's options there. Maybe there's some alternates in the project. I don't know that type of detail. But maybe that in the future, we could put an amendment to this ordinance to provide in the future, maybe in a year from now, when the money is received from some source, that they build these access stairs at some point, like Mr. Kissel had mentioned. So really, this is an accumulation of things. It wasn't a thing we're trying to put in the back door. It was really trying to look out for the public and give them, at the last meeting we had, public hearing, I asked questions about what exactly is for the public. There's a public deck, and you have to kind of go through the hotel lobby to get to it. There's outdoor patios, but the patios, if you're not going to be there purchasing drinks or whatever, I'm sure you're not going to be there for too long. So again, it's really just an idea that came up. It was something being done for the people of Erie, so I could bring my family down there, so I could enjoy the time, and visitors can come in and not be on so-called private property. So that's my reasoning, and I guess that's all I have.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I don't mean to belabor this. I totally 100% agree when done properly and at the right time in the process for community benefit agreements. I really totally agree with that. I think that the way the system is set up, these processes lend to us not being involved in the preliminary stages of them. Some, because it's the way it is, are authorities that do what they do, and when they need our approval or they need our recommendation or they need our involvement, they bring it to us. I think one of the things that's unique is we have some different people, for example, Mr. Brennan, who has a certain skill set, that these types of things spur things out of his mind that maybe if he wasn't on council, we probably wouldn't be sitting here on a certain level tonight, to be perfectly honest. And so I think if we're not going to change the process, then we as council members have to be involve ourselves earlier in the process if we want to have our opinions and our ideas either considered or incorporated. We have to be in there earlier. If you want to have a community benefit agreement, it should be a part of the process. It shouldn't be an at the end of the process throw on. And I know sometimes ideas come at the end. Don't get me wrong, I know that all too well. But I think this is just the first phase. Someone kept saying phase one, phase one. I think that there's a lot more development that can happen that can really take hold and have some community benefit attached to it. I personally don't want to hold up this process on a system that if they followed it, now if they was like skirting things, I'm all for like, hold it up. Hey, I don't care. You skirted, we gave you, But if they haven't skirted a process and if they've done everything they're supposed to do, I don't think it's fair to hold up a process for something that we came up with late. Albeit it may be wonderful, we came up with it late. And so, but with that said, I think there's a lot more development to be done in that space, in the GAF property, and in that area that we can do some serious community benefit involvement. And now it's up on us to come to you to make sure that happens to the best of our ability. And I don't think it's fair to blame them for following the process that we put in place, even if we disagree with it at this point. So, yeah, that's all I had.
Okay, Case, did I see your hand go up?
Well, I just want to mention that the master planning process is being led by Jeff Kidder, who you all know, and that process will commence to talk about the majority of the space on this property. And we will comply with whatever council dictates. Whenever they dictate it, just let us know, and we will answer your questions, listen to your concerns, collaborate on the best solution. And Jeff Kidder, a local architect, is heading up that effort for us, along with his team. So immediately accessible, a local guy. I think you all know him. Let's ensure that this situation with council never occurs again, because we certainly did not intend that to happen, and we'll do everything we can that never makes you feel like this again.
Can I make a comment, Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I just want everybody to know, we had a study session on, a pretty in-depth study session. We did have a public hearing, a pretty in-depth public hearing also. Even though we maybe not been aware of this 6 months ago, we knew about it 6 weeks ago. Sure, things develop as time goes on. Mr. Kissel and these stairways, a great idea, but to stick it into the plan or put a stipulation in now and still have the project move forward, I don't think it's feasible. If you're saying that if we don't vote on it tonight, we could hold this, it could cost, 2 weeks voting on this could cost us a year of development.
I can ask their scheduler to clarify that.
Confirm that or clarify it one more time, please.
Steve Morvay with EE Austin. Yes, that is correct. Any delay has a cumulative effect of the overall project. It's like a bunch of dominoes, and one domino falls, which kicks the next, which kicks the next, which kicks the next, which then could cause that delay in the overall operation of the hotel. And as Casey mentioned earlier, that delay of that summer season, spring and summer season, certainly can have an undue impact into their operations.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just had a couple more observations. For you folks who may not know, I did not attend the study session because I was out of town for a medical appointment for one of my children, but the study session obviously went forward without me, so it was not intending to not get involved in this process at an earlier juncture. But obviously my children's health takes precedent, and we go out of town for care, and we go when we need to go. So part of it too, the ideas that have come to us, we got a letter as late as yesterday asking us to look into this item. So it's not as if we have thought about this and not offered our input to you until this juncture. The consideration of putting some of our ideas into the master plan for the GAF site, certainly I would think would be a reasonable concession. If we could feel that we could be heard with you in that planning, we could defer some of our public amenity space ideas for that project. I would be willing to do that. I think my purpose is we got to have some public activity here, public access, and I'm not a fisherman. And I love Ed, but I don't fish, and I want to have something to walk down and look at and do or whatever, or sit down and enjoy in addition to just the regular walkway there. So if you will agree to let us to be in some discussions over the planning, that could help. The other piece that I didn't bring up yet, and all of council may not have been aware of, but we talked at the public hearing about the parking lot existing on the Convention Center, Sassafras Street Pier, and versus the parking garage on the new location. And at the public hearing, I think we went around a lot about talking about could you have put that there? Could you have put it on top of the existing surface lot? Could you have done something differently than to have so much parking on at least what I consider prime real estate, to have parking lots? I believe that from our conversation at the public hearing, you felt that potentially the surface lots on Sassafras Street Pier could be repurposed into a master plan for use in some other capacity other than surface parking once the parking garage grows and to handle the capacity. Is that right? Am I right about that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that is just a could maybe, or that's part of a plan to do something with that surface lot other than parking?
It's in our ideas that some of that parking can be repurposed for buildings where it makes sense, yes. The concept plan that was done as part of the GAF remediation plan only looked at the GAF site.
Right.
We are looking at the master plan of the whole Sassafras Street Pier, which will take into account future development of what is currently Convention Center Authority parking. Because if just as an aside, the entrance road that approaches the front door of the Convention Center was built as it is because it was built when the GAF plant was
Still
there.
active, right.
And that road was specifically arranged that way
Avoiding
to
the
get
scale.
in
I think
and
there was
get
a
away
scale
from
in the other road.
GAF as quickly as possible and show the visitor the waterfront, the inner harbor. Now that GAF is gone, we're able to rethink the bigger picture of the whole Sassafras Street Pier and understand that that road may not make sense there anymore, now that we control the future of both sides of Sassafras, where when that was done, it was only one side.
Okay. And, you know, in researching our vote for tonight, you know, I've looked very closely through the waterfront conditional use zoning ordinance. And the provisions regarding parking in that ordinance have a lot of specific, not specific, I guess general terms in which trying to make parking lots attractive, aesthetically pleasing, hidden, even so much as saying 10% of the parking lot should be devoted to landscaping, grass, ground cover plants, shrubs, all that stuff. So one of the things that we have to do when we consider a vote on waterfront conditional use is to see if you're meeting the conditions of the ordinance. So in my review, I'm thinking, are you meeting the conditions of the waterfront conditional ordinance on that surface lot? Because in my just reading it and thinking about it, I would think there might be, these conditions aren't necessarily being met in that surface lot, and that would be something that hopefully could be addressed or reviewed.
Which surface lot?
On the surface lot at Convention Center.
The one that exists?
Mhm.
That went through the whole same review.
But that doesn't mean you're in compliance, or they, not you.
Well, I don't think it would have got built without compliance. I wasn't involved with it, but it's built, and it went through the same process we're going through, and it had to comply. I mean, I don't know, it wouldn't have
I
got
wonder
built
if it
unless
would be possible for Convention Center to take a look at the provisions of 306.62 and 306.64 and see if that lot meets the conditions of the
Well, I would say
waterfront conditional use.
the zoning office would have the file on it, and they would have their checklist for compliance in the zoning office.
Well, we grant the permit or whatever, but it would be up to the developer to make sure that they installed what was stated in the conditional use, what's it called? Granting, you know, in the permit. But I'm not saying it wasn't in there. I'm saying, is it today built within these specifications? Is it today meeting our specification?
I have no reason to believe that it isn't, but we can ask Jeff, who's under our contract now, to take a look at that.
I would appreciate it if you'd look at it, just from my read, and I'm saying, what are we going to do with the new parking lot, and can we repurpose some of that, parking garage, can we repurpose some of that parking lot and meet the needs?
Yeah, it would be news to me if that was the case, because we built it as approved.
Okay. If you look into it. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, let me say that what we just went through is unusual, and we usually don't have this much discussion, but I think it was very, very important. We're involving the citizens of Erie. We're involving around 50 mil? 40 million dollar project with changes, possible changes, no changes. You have me totally confused, so I got to get a recap. Okay. Where are we now? Mr. Brennan, Councilman Brennan, proposed it. So let me ask you, what's your pleasure at this time, sir?
I'd like to amend, due to the discussion that we have, to amend the ordinance to include a condition that we include a 800 square foot landscape concrete plaza area located on the public access pathway with railings and safety features to be installed within 1 year of hotel completion.
Is there a second on the amendment?
I'll second. So you're thinking like a more public space there?
More public space, again, 800 square foot landscape concrete plaza area located on the public access pathway with railings and safety features to be installed within 1 year of the completion of the hotel.
Okay, we've heard the amendment. Any question on the amendment?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Yes.
Can you say that again, Mr. Brennan? Exactly what your amendment is?
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
Can you just restate the amendment again? I just
Okay.
want to make.
I'd like to amend the original proposal that I had, instead of a stairwell, construction stairway, outside stairway, to provide a landscape area of 800 square feet, a concrete plaza area, to be located on the public access pathway, between the public access pathway, on the public access pathway, between there and the water, with the railings and required safety features to be installed within 1 year of the hotel completion.
Is that, Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I'm just not sure that, I'm not in no way, because you're an architect, this is what you do, I guess, on a certain level. But, I mean, it just seems like a pretty random number. Like, I don't know what that means, like 800 feet,
20
what
feet
is
by
that?
40 feet.
I mean, I get the math.
I was
I
just
get the
giving a square
math of
footage.
it. I understand multiplication. I'm saying, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? Why those numbers? Like, this is, I mean, that's kind, again.
Estimated cost?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a cost assessment to this.
Yeah, not have an exact sketch in front of me. I just anticipated an area that would be for public access. It would seem like a nice area that would provide outdoor space for people to gather, similar to what's provided at the GAF site currently, with the railing that's currently there and the walkway.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mirsky.
I don't understand, I mean, like Mr. Jones, I don't understand how we came up with 800 square feet. I'm not necessarily sure that concrete is the most aesthetically pleasing view, for that area. The natural riprap, or the riprap and the natural beach that's there, I think is more actually aesthetically pleasing than concrete steps. My concern is also for safety and liability in the wintertime when the waves crash on those icy steps. Who's responsible for them? Is it the owner of the property? Is it the Port Authority? Is it the city? Those are questions that need to be answered. Also, just in a broader sense, I'm really concerned that this is a bad way to do business. I think we're sending the wrong message to private developers that you come with a project, you play by the rules, you do all the requirements, and then at the last minute, we're going to change things on you. I'm going to sit here and say, I want a 50-foot water fountain, and then we're going to amend it and then force people to do things. I just don't think that's business friendly. Like it was mentioned before, we had a study session 3 weeks ago, a public hearing 2 weeks ago. Mr. Wells gave us his personal cell phone number a few days ago, said any questions, any concerns. In my talks with Casey, nobody called, nobody said anything. So to do this now, I just think sends the wrong message to private developers coming up on the next phase of this project, and it might scare some people off.
Mr. President, I know Mr. Mirsky mentioned stairs. I wasn't proposing a stairwell. I was proposing a public area, plaza area, where there could be, people can gather and enjoy the sunset and enjoy the waterfront.
I guess I'm not comfortable voting for it until I can see something before I vote on anything, but thank you.
The one big difference, I hate to, beg to differ, Bob. Unlike Mr. Scott's project, this is public money. This is not a private developer. Let's be honest, this hotel wouldn't be built unless it was with public money. At least that's my feeling. I mean, it wouldn't, you know, we're subsidizing this.
Well, for clarification, it's people who use the hotel. It's built with the hotel tax.
Understandable, but you got to remember.
It's not your personal, like, property
Gentlemen,
tax.
let's not talk to each other.
I don't want to, I'm just saying, I'm pointing out that the room tax and other things subsidize that project plus government money. You know, this is not unusual in what county government did when they underwrote the bond issue, and they asked for a low return on their, you know. So we're just saying, hey, you know, for the good of the public, because this is a public project, paid for with public funds, I think we want to see something there for the public. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and the big fear they got is that the GF site and the Bayfront is going to turn a little bit gated community-like. That's the fear out there. It may or may not be true, but that's a perception, and perception becomes reality. We had the same argument when we dealt with the East Bay project with the McAllister place. You know, they were talking about were they going to close that off or not. Other towns who have waterfronts, and I've been to Allentown, I've been to San Diego, I've been to Wilmington, I've been to Minneapolis, I've been to the Door County in Wisconsin, I'll go on and on. They all got public access features. I don't think we're asking anything out of the realm of the, you know, exotic. And you know what? If we decide, you know, in a year that they can't meet the goals, then maybe they come back to us and we work something out. But I want to see some down there too. As Jessica pointed out, when you look at this, it's not very inviting for me to go down there.
Mr. President, I just want to address Councilman Mirsky's question about the setting of precedents. I think there's already a precedent set right now. The precedent is anything that comes to council, we say yes.
Okay.
Mr. President, just one more thing, please.
One more, last one.
Kaz, I agree with you about public access. I think the issue here is what Mr. Jones says, and it's the process. To add things on to development at the last minute, increase their cost, delay their project, I don't think that's business friendly for our business. The difference between the county and us is the county stepped up weeks ahead of time and got into serious discussions with the Convention Center Authority, and that's how they hammered out that deal. We didn't do our due diligence and set this up early enough. And so, I mean, to me, if we would have did this 3 weeks ago when we had the study session, the process, that was the time in the process to do it. At the 11th hour, I don't think it's the proper time to start adding stuff willy-nilly.
Okay, that's it. That's it. We'll be here all night. Okay. Now, we have a motion on the floor, and we do have a second. Rose, could you read the amendment?
Do I need Mr. Brennan's prepared?
Oh, I'm not sure there's much of a prepared note, but a couple scribbles here. Do you want me to? I'll do it. Okay.
Okay, by Mr. Brennan and seconded by Mrs. Rancoon. So to amend.
Excuse me, Rose, let me ask the legal opinion. Do we vote on what's on the agenda, up or down, or we go to the amendment?
Amendment first.
Amendment first?
Logically, it's the amendment first.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Rose.
That's okay. To vote on the amendment is stated by Mr. Brennan to include an 800 square foot concrete plaza area located on the public access pathway with railings and safety features to be installed within 1 year of hotel completion.
Okay.
Mr. Brennan? Mrs. Haran-Kunso? Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Kwiatkowski? Mr. Mirsky?
No.
Mr. Winarski?
No.
Mr. Witherspoon? This resolution will pass by yeas 4, nays 3. This amendment to the resolution.
Mr. President, quick question.
Yes, sir.
It came to me as she was doing the roll call. With this change, is there a process that needs to be gone through for this amendment to become a reality in the project? I don't know if again, this is a different, use of some space? I don't know. Just a question. I don't know.
I
what the
don't,
answer is.
personally, I don't think
Is there,
so.
okay.
They'll get the amendment.
No, I'm just saying, I don't know. I mean, it just with this 800 square foot space, I don't know if there, I mean, is that something that needs to be looked at from like the conditional use component of that? Or is that already like, is the umbrella big enough that this would fit under it without needing to change anything or look at any other?
I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I don't either.
Mr. President, the waterfront conditional use dictates that you have to come for a public hearing if you're making a significant change. Would be a minor. There's a percentage.
So the
That would re-trigger the start of the process, 20%. Building permit, minor additions, alterations, 20% or less are exempt from the process. This is definitely way less than, it's a postage stamp on the property, so it wouldn't trigger a renewal of the waterfront conditional use unless we change the process more than 20%.
Okay.
And this does allow the hotel to go forward now, so.
Right.
If we vote on the, we need to vote on the amended ordinance.
If we do
correct?
that.
Okay, now, keep me straight on that. Now we vote on the amended ordinance.
Yes.
Okay. You got that one, Rose?
Not quite.
I didn't think so, because I'm not either.
Okay, we just voted on to amend it, and now we're going to vote for, is it going to be the original resolution? With the amendment?
With the amendment.
82,000.
As amended.
As amended, okay. Then, the resolution was pursuant to the provisions of zoning ordinance number 80-2005, and a public hearing held Wednesday, August 6, 2014 at 9:30 a.m. The request for waterfront conditional use by Kidder Walker Architecture and Design in conjunction with the Erie County Convention Center Authority for construction of a new hotel to be attached to the existing Erie County Convention Center at 1 Sassafras Pier, and a parking garage to be adjacent to the hotel with a covered walkway is hereby approved by City Council as amended. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.
Okay, new business.
Okay. Resolution that the proper city officials are authorized and directed to execute a contract between the City of Erie and McGill Power Bell and Associates LLP, 1920 West 8th Street, for preparation of the annual audit and financial report, CAFR, for the fiscal year of 2013 at a fee of $32,300 per letter of engagement submitted on February 10th, 2014.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Since we forgot to move the balance, I just want to comment on this, and then we can move forward. The auditor, I did have a conversation with the city auditor, and he is going to attend our regularly scheduled Finance Committee on September the 3rd, immediately following council meeting, so approximately 11 o'clock, in which we'll have our opportunity then to ask, what's going on with the audit and offer any questions or concerns that we might have to him, and find out from him any way we can help with the process of completing the audit in a timely fashion. This item on the agenda is to execute that contract we talked about in finance as well, to get officially on paper that they are engaged as the city auditor. So that's all. Just wanted to clarify.
Rose?
Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I move the balance of the agenda.
Been properly moved.
I'll second
it. Been second.
Any separations?
Hearing none.
Moving the balance of the agenda, Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Saran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. That would take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Mr. Mursky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things to report. School starts next week, so please follow the school safety signs and the speed limit signs in your school zone areas. A few things that I attended over the week. Celebrate Erie was a huge success, a safe, fun event for the city, and everyone that went, even when the weather turned bad for a little bit, everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. The Chalk Walk was beautiful. The entertainment was top-notch. Cheap Trick was a great band. The Michael Jackson tribute band, they were really good. And thank you to everyone who participated, city administration and staff of the city who worked and volunteered at it. All are volunteers from the community that came out for that. They really stepped up and did a great job. I also attended last weekend the Farm to Table dinner from the Erie Historical Society. And they had a dinner out at their Battles Museum out in Girard, and it was all local food. From the chickens that were grass-fed or grain-fed and raised just for this event, to the vegetables that were fresh. It was a delicious meal prepared by Make It Fabulous Catering. And thank you to Cal Pfeiffer and everyone at the Historical Society for a great event. And it was really, some of the plans that the Historical Society has to move their organization forward are going to benefit our community, and I encourage them to keep up the good work. And finally, Zabava's this weekend. As the good Polish person I am, I beat Councilman Winarski to the punch, and so come on out and enjoy some good Polish food.
But I'll beat him to the fest.
And I challenge Councilman Winarski to a polka dance-off. Thank you.
Councilman Mursky. Councilman Mursky.
Yes.
I plan to be there. Melvin Witherspoon.
Well, you know what? Bring it on.
Melvin Witherspoon.
You're too smooth for me, I'm telling you. You're too smooth.
I'm sorry, Councilman Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Port Authority, we have a meeting coming up next week, I believe. And I do want to report 8th grade Tuesdays at Liberty Park continues, but the last concert of the season, boy, that went fast, is August 26th. That's next Tuesday, 6:30 to 9:30. Jake's Blues, Rick McGee, and Royals Rockers are playing, so definitely try to make the most of summer and stop down. Also, I want to report of course, it's been in the newspaper also, the Port Authority is in the process of hiring a new executive director. I'm sure that's a very hard thing to do. A very important thing to do also. But the applications are due on the 1st of August. Interviews are currently taking place, and they hope to have a new chief on board by September. I'm not sure what date yet, but I'll probably find out the next meeting. I did want to report on an activity. I'm working on a committee, the Erie 9/11 Memorial. The beam was put up last year, and currently the planning is finished, and we are meeting, actually starting construction tomorrow. They're going to start digging for the concrete plaza area, which will include electrical power for some lighting fixtures, and also landscaping, memorial displays, and also granite benches will follow. And the goal is, of course, to try to get it complete by September 11th, this 13th anniversary of the tragic event, and I'll try to keep everybody informed as the opening develops. Also, I did want to note about the summer festivals. St. Paul's Italian Fest was this last week in Little Italy. It was a great festival, incredible food. As Mr. Mursky mentioned, Zabab was coming up, and I did want to make extra mention about Celebrate Erie. I thought it was fantastic. I'm a little biased because I like Cheap Trick since for a long, long time. But we did go see Sawyer Brown also, and I took my family down probably like 4 different times, and I thought it was a great event. It turned out really well. The food was wonderful. I thought it ran very smoothly, and congratulations to all the administration and all the staff who worked on it. Thank you.
Councilman Winarski.
and as well as my colleagues talking about Celebrate Erie. I believe Miss Beck deserves a little round of applause because she was the woman behind the scenes on that one. That's one of the jobs she inherits when she's the mayor's top secretary, and I appreciate the efforts you do, and, top assistant. But it was a major success. The sponsors we had, that's huge, because that could not go on without all the sponsors, as well as the volunteers. Great event. Want to thank the liaison to the Metropolitan Transit Authority, and through all these summer festivals and the 8th grade Tuesdays, they always help the citizens of Erie out, and we get free shuttle service. Sometimes at these neighborhood festivals, like Zabava coming up this weekend, parking is very limited sometimes, but they're actually going to have a shuttle service from 34th and Wallace at the Greek Catholic Church up there. And so take advantage of that. I know they were down at the Italian Festival from the Central Mall to the Italian Festival. They do the 8th grade Tuesdays from the library or the intermodal over to the park. And it's nice to be in partnership with that, and it's all free. They give us free rides, as well as they still do shuttle service from 14th to the intermodal on State Street. So I want to thank them for their efforts to make our summers in Erie go a little smoother. Thank you.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, excuse me, I think it can't be said enough to recognize those in the city staff, Ms. Beck, as well as many, many others from the community who volunteered and provided the citizens with the Celebrate Erie events over the last weekend and end of last week. Just kind of grows and enhances little tweaks every year that adds value to it and adds some more fun for the young people, for the kids, for the adults, and so kudos to everyone involved in that and in whatever way that they were involved. Also, we had a lot of discussion around this waterfront conditional use, and we ended up coming to a vote and we're moving forward. I think that sometimes when we have those kind of vehement discussions and dialogues, we exhale after the vote's over one way or the other, and then we forget some of the really valuable conversation we had through that dialogue. And I think one of those components is to really work as a body or individuals or with a group from the community or whatever, to really look at how we can have some very significant community benefit and agreements in place for the rest of the development of that site. And I think public access is a wonderful thing, and I think we have that, and I think we'll obviously have more of that. But I think there's some other areas that we can look at under the umbrella of community benefit agreements, and I don't want to lose that part of the discussion, as well as some other valuable things I think that were conversed and brought up through the dialogue this evening. Also, the young people who I didn't comment as they were citizens, they came up as citizens to be heard, talking about the hip hop, and that's their generation. It's kind of funny. I'm 38, so it's like they're like a step removed. I'm 15 years older than those young people, but it's a vehicle that is very prevalent in our community, our society, all over the world, globally. But they're using that vehicle to try to bring forth a positive message for our community. And so I think we hear enough about the people their age who are shooting, stabbing, robbing, killing, being killed. We don't celebrate enough their counterparts who are their age group, who are business owners and entrepreneurs and college graduates, or in some way have done some things beyond even college, to have bettered themselves and want to better the community by using their gifts. So I think it's important that we recognize them and all those like them that are somewhat another level of unsung heroes in our community. The mother came up, talking about her son. I don't know if you can be alive and human and have a heart and not feel what she was saying. I mean, sometimes it's detached when you kind of hear the news. We can become desensitized a little bit because it's on the news or it's there or it's down there. But when the person's in, and you can feel their energy, it just brings another level of urgency that we need to do whatever we can do, not just council, yes, council, anything we can do legislatively, community-wide, use our bully pulpit, so to speak, to promote the message of unity and community and all of that. But bigger to say to the other members of our community, to say, when you see kids, this stuff happening, stop it. You know, I was at Spoon's court, not during the games. I was there on free time, and there were some young men who got into a fight. And I turned around, they were right behind me. I don't know how I missed it. They were fighting, turn around, and they're going, they're cousins. They're like arguing, and and I pulled them apart. Then I realized that they're a little stronger than I thought, and it was potentially a challenging situation. I could have been hurt, or they could have been hurt or something. But I couldn't sit there and let two 12-year-olds or two 11 and 13-year-old fight, cousins or not. And somebody said, well, they're cousins, that's a family issue. I said, no, that's an unacceptable issue. And so we have to be courageous enough to be involved. And I'm not saying everybody break up fights, that's not smart. But what I am saying is that we need to be involved as citizens outside of a title, beyond just human being, to try to make our community better. And the more people that are looking and speaking and saying, the more people who want to do negative things are uncomfortable doing it. And we need to make our community, every part of our community, from the east side, west side, north and south side, the unacceptable place for antisocial and violent behavior. My heart was reaching. We were sitting here talking. I missed the first part of our conversation because I went out and I was watching the mother through the glass, and the son looked like she was like adjusting his body. And I stepped out for a moment to speak to some citizens, and the little boy was dancing. I mean, literally, I was like, man, is this the same kid she was just talking about? And 20 minutes later, he could barely move. And it doesn't even seem real. So I literally went out and talked, and I helped her walk him to the car. And you could feel, it doesn't hurt, his body goes numb. So there's some nerve damage that's happened as a result of this. And you can literally, I can feel his body shaking, and his foot trying to feel the ground, and he couldn't feel it. And so this is serious business. This is no joke, and we have to do something. Everyone has a responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen to another young man. And we do everything we can to help this young man and the ones who did that to him, because they have some issues. If that's okay to stomp somebody out in the middle of 4th or 5th or any street, they have some significant issues that need to be dealt with as well. So that's all of our responsibility. On a much brighter note, just want to say, as Mr. Mirsky did, congratulations on completing a summer, young people, but let's get ready to go back to school. Right. Parents are happy, kids are sad, but nevertheless, it's a good time of year to go in. Teachers are sad too. Right, exactly. But also, I want to say to my oldest son and to all those who are in that same boat, congratulations on graduating last May and June. I will be dropping my son off, the first of 4, college this weekend, and I know Mr. Brennan as well is doing the same thing, so congratulations to your daughter and to my son Curtis III, and to all those in that same boat going to school or back to school in the coming weeks. Make us proud and make your family proud. Thank you, Mr. President, for the extra time.
Welcome. Councilman Kwiatkowski.
Hey, Dober wieczór, Mr. President. We're going to make you Polish yet. Bobby forgot I was Polish, I think, but I had to get back at him. Remember, the title runs to the old man.
Oh, you want to get in the dance-off, too? It's going to be me, Mr. Witherspoon,
and the crew,
Mr. Winarski, and you.
Put a skirt on him.
Quick report, I attended the aggregate pension meeting and also the investment committee meeting for the aggregate pension funds. And it's a pleasure to report that our new advisor is working well with us. We're making progress towards improving the fund. I heard a comment in the paper the other day about, actually, I think it was on the paper about we were only 75% funded. That's a little misleading because you have to know where we came from and where we are now to know the good progress, and that's due to the hard work of all the boards. But I want to assure the council and the public that things are progressing well with the fund. I, too, plan on meeting with that young lady tomorrow, Curtis. Mr. President, I'll follow up on that, and I'll meet with Jill. I gave her my number, and I have hers. I agree with Curtis. It's time we take back our community a little bit. We got bigger problems than zoning on the waterfront and everything. We got real deep problems in this community that got to be solved first. And I'm going to start tomorrow by talking to her, and I hope we can come up with some kind of resolution, some kind of process to start taking our community back block by block. Nobody should put up with the kind of stuff that goes on today. As for the master plan that the convention center was talking about, I can't speak. I haven't been there that long, but I certainly want to be part of it, and I will make myself available, and I'll make sure that I tell Mr. Wells in person that I want to be kept in on that. I think this is the one project, the last project, that has the heart and soul of the city. This is our last great effort that we can make to really turn our city around, to rival that conglomerate up on Peach Street or anything else. I think our waterfront can match up with any waterfront that I've toured in the last 5 years, but we have to start making it happen. And I think the process that we did tonight doesn't stop that process, but I think it makes them pause to think that the authorities are really responsible to us and the public. And sometimes I think they forget that. And I don't mean to, belay the point, but I'm proud of this council because I think this is one of the finest government groups I've ever worked with in all my years. It's a diverse group. We all have our different opinions. And like the group that I think was probably the closest to this when I was on the school board is we could argue, we could disagree, but at the end of the day, we could walk home together and have a beverage or lunch together. And I think that's what makes this council good, because we're not afraid to argue, and we're not afraid to get our points across. And I think at the end of the day, there's a respect for each other. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. There ain't gonna be no argument under my watch. I ain't gonna have it. Now, Ms. Saran-Kunso, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope to not argue with you anymore. I'll try. We'll see. Since Councilman Kwiatkowski mentioned that about the master plan, I think that was one of the things that at least we got out of tonight, was feeling like we're invited to the table on input. I think that most of council was sitting here some time ago when we held a public hearing to try to get input and insert ourselves into the planning process for that site, because we weren't invited to the planning process. We had to make our own way into the planning process, and I think that was nice thing that came out of tonight, that we will be more involved and more considered, our input considered, hopefully, in the master plan for the rest of that Bayfront piece. So I look forward to that. I do think, too, it might behoove us to make an amendment to our own waterfront conditional use to set some time frames in there that will ensure that the developer who comes with the waterfront conditional use can't put us in the back, in the corner all the time. I'm not sure how we could do that, but maybe we could have some language in there that either moves the waterfront conditional use process up, or else dictates a time span following the public hearing in which we have time to consider before the vote. So if it was in there that we had 30 days to consider before the vote, then the developers would know they have to give us that much time. So I think we could consider making that kind of a amendment in the future. Two other things to mention. I was at the Aggregate Pension Board with Councilman Kwiatkowski, and also we held a Water Reserve Investment Committee meeting with the advisor, who is the advisor for both, and both funds are doing very well, continuing to make gains, and the new consultant is going to work with the Aggregate Pension Board to put out some RFPs for some different fund managers and also custodian for those accounts. So we look forward to continue to look for improvements in all of our investments for both the pension and the water reserve. I did find it interesting that came to my attention that we have received some money in the form of a payback that was, when the original convention center and hotel was built, the city council used $2.5 million of our water reserve money, which is really the only money that council has 100% control over. This is we require a vote of council to move that money. It is not with the mayor. The mayor has no say over that money. But in any event, we had $2.5 million that we gave in the form of a loan to the convention center and for the hotel and the convention center to be built. And in any event, we received I received word that they have been making some payments back to us, which is good news, that we can be reinvested in the water reserve account. The purpose of that account is to build some money to give back to the city for capital improvement projects the city may need. And they have given us, I guess, starting in late 2012, there's been a number of payments made to the city in the amount of $227,000 that can be reinvested in our water reserve account. I was a little bit dismayed to not have been given word of this until 2014, July or whatever, as the chairperson of the Water Reserve Investment Committee. But we'll be probably having an action of council to invest that money in our funds or at our next Water Reserve Investment Committee in November. Hopefully that decision will be made. But that is just an update too. I don't know if Bob knew this, but they're making payments on that 2.5 obligation. So that's good. The other thing was I was at Celebrate Erie 2 in the capacity of a t-shirt salesperson, which I like to do. So I try to do my part and help out selling the Celebrate Erie merchandise. And I was next to the Erie Fire Department had a booth in which they were giving away smoke detectors to the citizens, and they wanted me to make sure that I mentioned that at council, that they have available at the Fire Administration Building on Marsh Street smoke detectors with a 10-year battery that's like a permanent battery that stays in there for 10 full years, and that if you're a homeowner in the city of Erie, you can come down and get one of those for yourself. They advise that you change your batteries, change your smoke detectors. If your smoke detector in your home or smoke detectors are more than 10 years old, that you replace them. So this is a great program. They gave away a ton of smoke detectors, talked to a lot of people about fire safety in their homes, and so I would encourage anybody who's in need of a good smoke detector with a 10-year battery to head on down to the Fire Administration on Marsh Street and take advantage of that. And I want to thank Ms. Beck for all her hard work on Celebrate Erie again this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have a few things. I have spoken to, matter of fact, last year, to the police chief regarding the cameras on the cars. They were very costly. He had written a grant, which we didn't get, for the cameras on the car, so they are not forgotten. We're just waiting to see if there's another grant becomes available to get those cameras on the car. But they are very, very expensive. Also, like all of us, thank you for Erie Days. We love Erie Days, so days. Back in the days, I keep calling it that. I apologize. But anyway, you did an outstanding job. And the first thing I noticed when I walked hit State Street was the security. That's the first thing I noticed. That's the first thing that was important to me. They were there, and to my knowledge, we had zero situations. So I say whatever the cost is, security first. And I'm sure I can get council to vote 7-0 on security budgets. Ain't that right? Okay. But that, I was very impressed with that. We dealt with the waterfront today, and I've said it before and I say it again. We have an excellent group of young men and ladies. We discuss, raise our voice, we go back and forth, but at the end, we are council. You put us here, you don't want us rubber stamping anything, and we don't. We agree to disagree, but that's exactly what we do. We have a group, we have educator, an architect, we got a businessman, a minister, plus a dad of, I almost said 22, but that was your father.
22 what?
Children?
No, sir.
That's your dad?
4, that's my dad.
Okay, 19. But, and we have Cass Kwiatkowski, who is good in finance, and Jessica, educational. So we have it all. And we aren't going to agree on it. But when it comes down, the main thing, the project's not stopped. We're just asking for a little bit more. And I think the awakening tonight, I think Mr. Mursky said it, when they start a project, it's not only up to them to give us notification. Once we get it, we need to do something and get there. And all of us aren't going to make all the meetings. I know I can't. But those who do make the meetings, get on the phone, send us email, this is what happened. And again, we can all call Casey Wells, we can call the Water Authority, any other authority. Because if you don't get to phase 1, you can't get to phase 4. And don't wait to phase 4 to get involved. I think that's what Mr. Mursky was talking about. So we have to jump on it at the beginning. And we have a lot of good citizens that call us. But never forget, it took thousands of citizens to put us here. And don't get upset when one call you. Just listen. Just listen. What else do I have? I got about 4 more pages. Well, that was my Richard Pryor joke for the night. Administration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to thank all the members of City Council for their support of Celebrate Erie. Thank you for coming downtown. Mrs. Rankunso, thank you for selling some merchandise for us on, I think it was Sunday afternoon. I saw you down here, but hopefully Friday, Sunday, it's all a blur. I apologize. Hopefully you all were able to come down and enjoy with your families and had some access to the Art Museum steps where our sponsors have an opportunity to get up close and personal with the bands. We couldn't do it without all of your support. Of course, all the support from our sponsors. We're starting already to plan for next year. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything that we can do to improve the event, certainly we are open to that. And I couldn't have done this without the help of Paul Lichtenwalder, AJ Antolik, Brenda Sandberg, Keely and Rochelle in my office, our intern, Zach Peters. So there are a lot of people, June Bentia in Kids Zone. I know that I'm forgetting people, but there's a large team that goes into putting this event together, and of course, Mayor Sinnott. So thank you for your kind words, and we're looking forward to next year. Thanks.
Ms. Beck, since you said if you have any questions, what bands are coming in next year?
You'll be the first to know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I have one question. Do anyone know who's responsible for putting up school lights? Is it the school district or is it our responsibility? And the question is, there is one that's not being used where at Burton, and there's another school that's not being used.
On the agenda.
I thought I heard they're transferring that one at Burton.
Engineer, Leanne.
That's Leanne.
Okay, because I got a request from R. Benjamin Wiley School on East Lake Road. There isn't any there, and you got GE coming out. And
Mr. Witherspoon, item number 4 on your agenda is moving that
oh, I didn't get that far.
school traffic light to that location that you're mentioning. You are so fast. You got it done.
I told
See
you.
how good we are?
Already.
I was just checking
It's
out
done.
to see if you, I was going to see if you was busy or sleeping.
They knew, it was telepathic, they knew you.
Yeah, that's why you moved the balance. Meeting's adjourned.
City Council adjourns at
He's
9:46. Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rancoon.
See you in a few hours.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr.